Blackwater Estuary by J.T. Lawrence. Malden County, Essex, 1579 A.D. Poppy runs through the nettles and mud. Her boots threaten to betray her by sticking to the mire. She has, in her basket, the fruits of her morning's foraging: rosemary blossoms, clove stalks and resin of myrrh. She's tempted to abandon the harvest, but thinks that the plants might come in handy for what's ahead, so she firms her grasp on the handle and keeps running. Above her, the ravens cry. Thomas, the bearded dairyman, greets her, and she raises a hand in acknowledgement. Her neighbour, Pico, does the same. She smells the ale on him as she passes. She can tell that he wants her to stop, wants a chat, but she doesn't have time. She is needed at her homestead. The hand-painted wooden sign on her gate says Elderberry Farm, but it's not a farm. Not really. It's a modest plot with just enough land to keep her pantry well stocked and her neighbours sweet with gifts and good bartering. As the village herbalist and honeykeeper, she's known to have the greenest fingers in Malden County. Poppy jogs past the town square. The tradespeople are packing up their wares for the day: spun cloth, tallow candles, lavender soap, crusty loaves of rye. She'll bake her own bread in the morning. She prefers a finer grind to what the bakers here sell. You have to be careful of telling people that kind of thing, though. You have to buy a loaf of theirs every now and then, just to show that you don't think yourself better than them. Poppy doesn't care much about what people think, but she also knows that it's the tallest flowers that get scythed. At last, she reaches her dirt track. The Osgoods, the Middletons, the Giffords. And then she bursts through her gate and scrambles into the hall. She can't see her Jacqueline anywhere. Her cat skitters out of her way. "Poppy!" shouts a man with his hat in his white-knuckled hands. "You're here!" Lily, his wife, is bent over and groaning. "Did Jackie find you? We sent her to find you." The ravens had sounded the alarm, pulled her from the forest. But that is not for the Glovers to know. Poppy is perspiring, breathing hard. She moves over to Goodwife Glover and takes her hands. "Lily, is it bad?" "There's something wrong," says the woman, her face as pale as a waning moon. "I can feel it. There's something wrong." "She's in pain," offers Glover. "Thank you," says Poppy. "I'll take over now." The man looks relieved as she leads his lowing wife away. A labour chamber is no place for a man. There is a welcoming coolness of the stone floors, but this won't last long. The fireplace is stocked with wood and kindling ready to come alive at the flick of a flint. Poppy fills her black kettle with well water and hangs it over the straw which she lights. She flings off her hat, smooths her wisps down, and scrubs her hands. People scoff at this habit, but she believes that clean hands are an outward symbol of a clean mind, and she needs to keep her wits about her if this is going to be a difficult birth. "When did they start?" "This morning," says Lily. "But they were easy." Poppy opens all the lattice windows and drawers, unties all the knots. "You should have come over." She gives Lily a jasper gemstone to hold. "I didn't want to bother you too soon. I was timing them, but then—" She grinds her teeth. "But then something changed." "Climb on the birthing stool. Let me take a look." "Poppy," she says, desperate, grabbing Poppy's wrist. "I don't want the baby to die." "The baby won't die." Poppy begins rubbing salve on Lily's tightening belly. Perhaps what Lily also meant was, "I don't want to die." But that she cannot guarantee. 3 hours later, just as Goodwife's Glover's screams threaten to strip the straw from the very roof, just as Poppy is deciding that she will have to cut the baby out, there is a change, a shift. The breeze picks up outside and whistles its news. There is to be a concession for this woman, and surely enough, the screeching subsides, and a waxy grey head appears. One more exhausted push from Lily is enough to deliver him in his entirety, despite his generous size. The baby is limp and blue and isn't taking a breath. Poppy rubs him vigorously with a cloth, trying to wake him. She smacks his sides, pokes his ribs, speaks to him sternly, telling him it's time to wake up, but the baby does not stir. The women make sad eye contact. Lily is too exhausted to cry. Poppy lays him on the bed, pinches his nostrils closed, and uses her own breath to inflate the boy's lungs. On her third exhalation, he starts. He gurgles and coughs. Poppy clears his mouth and breathes into him again, and this time he takes the next breath himself and rewards the women with a yell of indignation. Poppy, light-headed with relief, cuts his cord at 4 fingers and wraps him in swaddling cloth, lays him on Lily's chest, plugs his mouth with his mother's nipple. What happened? What changed the almost certain outcome that this baby would not live? She cleans up while the newborn suckles, then bathes him in salt and honey to dry up his humours and comfort his limbs, all the while sending up a prayer of thanks to the forces that let this be. When Glover comes to collect his wife and son, he is buoyant with gratitude. He bundles them out into the night and into his cart, which he has lined with fresh linen for the occasion. He pays Poppy with cotton shifts and salted meat, and she can tell that he wishes that he could give her more. Just before he instructs the horse to trot, Lily stops him and takes a ribbon from around her neck. "Take this," she says, pressing it into Poppy's palm. "It was my mother's, and my mother's before her. I can't. Take it. You saved my boy's life. I want you to have it." Poppy opens her hand. A silver amulet, knotted onto the ribbon, shines in the starlight. The face of a wolf. "It's Fenrir," Lily whispers. "The wolf god." But Poppy knows that already. Jacqueline had arrived home while the birth was in progress and put herself to bed. She is an independent child. She has to be, with her father gone and the hours that Poppy works. She sits on the edge of her 7-year-old's bed, near the purring cat who lifts her sleepy head in greeting. Poppy strokes Jacqueline's cheek, her chin, marvelling at the beautiful creature sleeping before her, marvelling at the terrible love she feels for this being. Still a baby, really, despite her brave appearance and her sword-fighting skills. Poppy will need her help tomorrow. She's behind on the preserving and pickling of the late harvest, and she doesn't like to see one ear of wheat wasted. Jackie will complain, saying she has a village to conquer. She's going through a Viking phase, but she'll do her chores first. She always does. There's a knock on the door. The first thing that comes to mind is the Glover baby. Has something happened? Has he fallen asleep and not woken up? She makes her way to the front of the house and pulls open the door. The fire is fading, so a naked Poppy slides out of her thistledown bed to add more coal. Her braids are undone. Her dark hair drifts down her back. Devereaux watches her move in the firelight. "God, you're something," he growls. "Come back here, you vixen." "Not a vixen," says Poppy, moving towards him. He takes her hands. "No?" She leans towards him, puts his hands on her breasts, shows him the amulet on her chest. "A wolf." "Ah," he says, and howls like a homesick hound. "Shush, shush," she says, laughing, covering his mouth. "You'll wake Applejack." He stops howling, sucks her finger instead. "You're delicious. Tell me again why you won't come and live with me." "Stop it," says Poppy. "You know that's impossible, with your status." "Since when do you care what people think?" "It's not that." "I could hire you. You could live in the house under the guise of proper employment." "And what? Become your concubine?" "My staff are discreet." She shoots him a look of dubiety. "No, thank you." "It would be a luxurious life compared to this, anyway." "I'm very happy here, thank you very much, in this humble hovel." "I didn't mean that. You wouldn't have to worry about money. You wouldn't have to work. You could save these lovely fingers of yours." Poppy laughs. "Not work?" She shakes her head. It wouldn't be her life. There is a glint in Devereaux's eye. He's angry. "It's because of him, isn't it?" He's always had a quick temper, this pale, high-cheeked bone man. He was spoilt as a child, is Poppy's guess, never wanted for anything, as beautiful as a god, but blighted all the same. It's because of that bastard. Don't call him that. He's my husband. Husband? He laughs without humor. Richard left you 5 years ago. He's still my husband. He raises his voice. You think he'll come back, but he won't. Poppy knows she should stop the argument, soothe Devereux with words and caresses, but she's had a long day and is not in the mood for supplication. You don't know that. You don't even know if he's alive. He's Applejack's father. He doesn't give a damn about Applejack. Watch your words, Devereux. You still love him. You're a fool. He smashes his pewter goblet on the floor. It clangs against a stone and rolls to a stop. I think you should leave. Devereux sets his jaw and begins pulling his breeches on. And this time, I don't think you should come back. He puts on his doublet. You don't mean that. I do. You want to control me, and I will not be controlled. She knows she is playing with fire. He grabs his jerkin off the nearby stool, sending the chair cracking to the floor, shakes it onto his shoulders. He grabs her arm roughly, takes one last hard look at her. She can tell that he wants to strike her, bruise her. He wants to see her cry. You'll be sorry, he says, his irises black with fury. He squeezes her jaw so hard her teeth cut into the inside of her cheek. She unclamps his grip, returns his solid gaze, although she is shaking inside. The taste of copper is in her mouth. Goodbye, Devereux. Poppy is tending the bees when the justice of the peace arrives. The honey yield has been especially good since she's been experimenting with dog roses and wild raspberry. Jacqueline comes to call her. Her lips, hands, and apron are spattered with crimson, and it makes for a macabre sight. Have you finished with the beetroot? She asks her daughter, patting her head and twirling a loose strand of fringe. Yes, Mama. Good girl. She looks at the officer, then back at Applejack. Go and wash up, and then you can play. But I haven't yet. It's all right, she says. Take a break. We'll carry on this afternoon. Applejack hesitates, then whirls away. Poppy shields her eyes from the morning sun. Good day, Valence, she says, and he tips his hat to her. Is there something you're needing? More oak tincture for your wife, perhaps? I have some at the ready. Valence looks uncomfortable. He shifts his weight from foot to foot. We've had another complaint. Poppy sighs, crosses her arms. What is it this time? Pico. He says that you've hexed his milk cow. Will you say that again? His cow. When he retired last night, the cow was in perfect health. This morning, it won't stand up. And how does this have anything to do with me? He says you had an argument last week. It was hardly an argument. He owes me money, and I reminded him it was overdue. He says you cursed the cow for revenge. That's ridiculous. Pico is poor and wants my land. He's always had his eye on it. That may be. But, as I said, it's not the first complaint, and your neighbour is not the only one asserting that. Asserting what? Asserting that you've made a deal with the devil. Poppy laughs out loud. The devil, she says. How does one go about doing something like that? Valence lifts and lowers his shoulders. His whole body is a shrug. Poppy feels like striking some sense into his barrel chest. You spend too much time in the forest, he says. I'm a herbalist. And you know that the forest is where the evil spirits convene. Nonsense. In the woods. The Robbins boy saw you dancing, speaking in tongues. That boy is troubled. He is always watching me. He stalks me wherever I go. You were angry. You chased him away. I'm always chasing him away. He's menacing. When you were angry with him, a storm brewed. Did it? I don't remember. It killed the dog, the Robbins dog. What is the charge exactly? Do you believe I killed a dog? I'm not sure what to believe, but you know that I am a good woman, Valence. You don't come to church as often as you used to. I work this land on my own. I treat sick people. I birth babies. I don't always have time for Pastor Thurlow's ramblings." "It's that kind of thing," says Valence, sucking his teeth. "It's saying that kind of thing that gets you into trouble. You read too much." "So I'll be on trial for dancing in the woods and reading too much?" "We'll begin at 4, in the town hall." "An inquisition?" "An examination. You have to answer to the allegations. That's the way it is." "But they're ridiculous." "That's the way it is." The town hall is packed by 3:30. Poppy has never realized how many people want to see her undone until she walks into the humming, high-roofed room. There is a ripple of quiet as she steps through the threshold. The justice of the peace catches a glimpse of her and is relieved. He doesn't want to be forced to arrest her. The timber boards creak under her as she moves towards the front of the room where the pulpit serves as a makeshift witness box. Pastor Thurlow looks on intently. He has, Poppy is certain, been waiting patiently for this day to come. She looks out into the gathering, seeing men she has saved from the sweating sickness, women whose hands she has held through labor, the very children she helped deliver now bouncing on their laps. "Poppy Gossard, you stand accused," says Valence, "of forming a pact with the devil, of naughty dealings, and, ultimately, of witchcraft." The crowd murmurs. Poppy's hands are white fists. There is a buzz and a snap in the room, as if there is a storm cloud above them. "Willard Pico, please come forward and make your case against the accused." Poppy's neighbor, sober for once, comes up to address Valence. He tells the story of how he oftentimes seen strange happenings at Poppy's home. He smells her potions brewing, hears her cry out at night in pain and ecstasy as she indulges in sexual relations with the devil. Bawdy comments escape the gallery. Pastor Thurlow's ears turn red and burn at the idea. "And how do you know, sir, that it's the presence of the devil that you observe?" "Depraved fornication." Spittle gathers at the side of his mouth. "If you were to hear it, Justice, you would know it too." "No wonder her husband left her," shouts someone from the gallery. "She's had her fair share of company since then," says another onlooker. Pico speaks slowly and deliberately, as if he has rehearsed his story. He tells of their argument over his debt, and of how his milk cow is still too ill to stand. "I'll wager right now," he says, "that if I were to pay her the money she's so intent on, my cow would recover forthwith. Otherwise, I don't think she'll make it through the night." "Do it, then," cries a lout from the gallery. "Pay her and we'll see." Pico is known for his poverty. The little money he has always seems to find its way to the alehouse. When Poppy has sold him the scouring sand he needed, she hadn't been expecting a hasty return. Pico shoots a look at Valence, and Valence agrees. "Pay her, Pico, and we'll see." The man pulls out his leather purse and counts out some bronze coins. He counts them twice, then hands them over to Valence, who deposits them into Poppy's clammy palm. Where, she wonders, did he get this money? "We'll listen to the other witnesses, then make our way to Pico's holding." Other witnesses? Who else will betray her today? Goodwife Kemp takes the stand, tells of how her summer crop of rye spoiled before it was harvested. Under questioning, she reveals that she saw Poppy Gossard's striped cat amongst the stalks, rubbing its cheeks on the green of the produce. 6 days later, the plants were infected with a mold that drooped their crowns and rotted their grains. Bent, crooked, blighted. "Goody Kemp," says Valence, "do you contend that the Gossard cat is capable of evil deeds?" "A cat is a cat," sniffs Kemp. "I afford no special powers to them unless they are bewitched." "Bewitched?" "Every person in Malden County knows that Gossard is a sorceress, and that creature is her familiar." A low moan emerges from the gallery. Some people toss their heads. Poppy frowns at them, trying to establish the mood of their judgment. Kemp is excused. The crowd waits. "I request the testimony now of Goodwife Glover," says Valence. Thank God. A friend. Lily limps, baby bundled in her arms, and sighs in her direction. Poppy can smell the rose oil on the baby's skin. She tells the court of her difficult birth. He wasn't breathing, she tells the justice. He wasn't moving. His skin was sacs. But Poppy brought him back to life. The baby fusses and she rocks him to comfort him. Pastor Thurlow cannot sit still any longer. He stands up, bringing the court to attention. He seems genuinely shocked by the testimony. Brought back to life? Are we to believe that you gave birth to a dead baby and this woman summoned his spirit to live? I didn't mean to. How did she do it? Thurlow asks. Was there a tincture? An incantation? No, Pastor. All I mean is that I think with a less experienced midwife, baby Glover wouldn't be here today. How did she do it, woman? Tell us. I was almost delirious with pain, exhaustion. I may not be a dependable witness. Tell us what you saw, says Valence. He is gentle with her. She held him up, scolded him, smacked him. She struck a newborn infant? Asks Thurlow, eager to show his astonishment to the gallery. It's not an uncommon practice, says Lily. A man wouldn't know, of course, of the happenings in a labour chamber. Go on, says Valence. He still wouldn't wake, and by then I was sure that he would not. Then what did she do? She put her lips to his. She used her own breath to wake him up. The pastor seemed at once horrified and joyous. Are you saying this woman, Poppy Gozzard, breathed life into your dead infant? There is a silence in the hall. Lily seems unsure of how to answer. She looks at Poppy, then searches for her husband's face in the gallery. Goody Glover, says Valence. Is it true? That's not how it was. Or it's not what you think. It's a miracle, a wondrous gift. Blasphemy, shouts Thurlow. Human beings are not capable of miracle-making. Only the good Lord himself can do such a thing. Perhaps the good Lord used Poppy as his instrument, says Lily, eyes brimming. More like the devil, says Thurlow. The devil's instrument. The devil, the devil, the devil. Lily shields her baby from the pastor as his words create a sinister splatter about him. There was no evil doing in that room, she urges, looking desperate now to leave the stand, but the pastor won't allow it. You said yourself that you are an unreliable witness to the event. You were barely conscious, and Gozzard took advantage of your vulnerability. The people buzz with anticipation. That's not the truth, says Lily. Poppy stands. This is nothing but scandal-mongering. I will not be slandered this way. Valence steps forward with his hands out. Good people, please. But the pastor is in full swing. He struts as if on a stage. I put it to the good people of Malden County that Poppy Gozzard is a powerful witch, guilty of general maleficium and of harmful sorcery against her neighbours. A roar reverberates from the back of the court. People stand and jeer. Poppy can't tell if they are in her favour or against her. Valence offers his hand to Lily, helps her down off the stand and leads her to her husband, who stands, nonplussed, just outside the commotion. She's a good woman. He takes Poppy's trembling hand. You know she is. Pico's cow will decide the matter, says the justice. We'll be on our way there now. It's a 20-minute walk from the town hall to Pico's place, and Pico leads the way, even though everyone knows exactly where he lives. They walk over a dark patch of hardened sand, stained by the blood of a bear recently baited there and ripped apart by dogs. Pico side-eyes Poppy. Guilt shines from his face. Valence walks beside his charge. Poppy is unsure if he's there to protect her or to keep her from escaping. Where would she go? They reach the Blackjack Lane, which snakes up to Pico's ramshackle house. The townspeople, their target now in view, hurry past the weeds, tripping on the pink stones. Poppy lifts her woolen shift to avoid the unlucky seeds. Pico, still sober, is surprisingly agile as he strides up to his plot. Before Poppy catches sight of the cow, she knows it is dead. Her neighbour wails and curses. "She killed it!" he shouts, pointing a dirty finger at Poppy. "She killed my cow!" The people gather around the poor animal, belly distended by death fumes, blue bottle flies for eyelashes. "You said that if the animal recovered, it would be proof of my magic," says Poppy. "You can't have it both ways." "You tricked us," says Pico. "Of course you would not allow the cow to recover if it would be evidence of your evil doing. So whether the cow lived or died, it would be proof of my witchcraft? You're not called cunning folk for naught." "I've had enough of this eyewash," says Poppy. "I have honest work to do." She begins walking towards her house, mere meters away, but a strong grip on her arm holds her back. "I think we need to get back to the inquest," says Valence. "It was an examination. Now it's an inquest? Now it's a trial." The Robbins boy comes running up, face afluster. "There's no time for a trial," he says. His breath is short and sour. "What do you mean, son?" "Her magic is too strong. She's already taken revenge all over town." "Gozzard has been in my company all hours today. She's had no time to make mischief." "Her familiars carry out her demonry for her. I've seen it with my own eyes." "Your imagination is the thing of demons, lad," says Poppy, "not my work." The boy ignores her, licks his lips. "It's true. I saw that cat of hers, black and oily as tar, slipping into Goody Kemp's yard and attacking one of her hens. The fowl is dead as this cow." A voice from the gathering. "I saw that devil cat go into the house of the Glovers." The people titter in fright. Valence turns from Poppy to the boy. "For what? What now?" "To murder the baby, of course," splutters the boy. "The unbaptized baby. She's taking revenge on all the witnesses who testified today, and when she's finished with them, you will all be next." Valence seems alarmed. "That cat," the Robbins boy says. "I'm going to tie that cat in a sack and drown it in the river." Poppy slaps the boy hard across the face. The onlookers gasp and back away from her. "Shut your mouth, vermin," hisses Poppy. "Don't you see how dangerous your game is?" "It's no game," he shouts, rubbing his cheek. "I've seen this witch in the forest, communing with Satan." "I've also seen her," says Beckett, the cobbler, "coming out of the woods at all hours with her herbs and poisons." "And me," says Ellis. "And me," says Lansdowne, "and I've seen her talk to animals." "She'll kill that Glover baby if we let her." "Where is Goodwife Glover? Someone must fetch her, warn her." "I think we have all the proof we need," comes a voice from the back of the gathering. The people part, and Pastor Thurlow walks towards Poppy and Valence. "Raise your eyes to the treetops. Do you see the ravens gathered?" The people look up, and indeed, the uppermost branches are host to scores of black birds. "There is evil in our midst," says Thurlow. "It is imperative that we exorcise it before more harm is done." Townspeople prod Poppy in her back, forcing her back towards the town square. Thurlow clutches his Bible and recites verse. She tries to break away from them, but Lansdowne brings rough twine to tie her hands behind her back, and Ellis threatens to put a sack over her head. Jacqueline comes running, but the villagers keep her away. "Ma!" she screams. "Ma!" Poppy thrashes at her captors to get to Jacqueline. She's almost able to touch Jackie's hand, the soft, hot hands she knows so well, but they pull her back into their marching circle. Poppy's wrists chafe and bleed. She tries to escape again and again, and the people become angered by her perseverance. Beckett strikes her to quieten her spirit. Every attempt to get to Jackie now is met with a hammering to her face or a kick to her stomach. By the time they reach the town, she can no longer hear well, and her face is dripping with blood. Her daughter's screams are dull in the distance. Her dress is torn, and she has lost her shoes. The old gallows tree is grey in the shade of the triangular tower of the church. Tired sunlight, the colour of orange preserve, washes the top half of the surrounding buildings. Poppy is led up the stairs by Valence, who loses his grip on her for a moment. His hands tremble. The executioner stands alongside Pastor Thurlow, who is crimson-faced and still spouting verse like a madman. The bearded hangman readies the noose for her, but the pastor stops him. "The mercy of the Lord insists that I give you one last chance," he says. Poppy's eyes search for her daughter in the crowd. Faces, angry and shocked, stare back. People she has shared her modest harvests with, given honey gifts, baked bread for, mixed medicine. Children she has minded, babies she has delivered. She wants to believe that this is not really happening, but her mind and her heart are so wide awake that she knows that this is no night terror. The noose is real. She can smell the barley breath of the hangman. "One last chance," says the hell-faced pastor, "to confess your sins and give your life to the Lord." "I am innocent of the crimes you are so eager to lay upon me," says Poppy. "I have done no wrong." She sees Devereux on the steps of the town hall. He won't look in her direction. She wants to call out to him for help. Can't he see what is happening here? Surely with his money and influence he can help her. But then she sees him exchange a few words with Pico, and Pico swills from a new cup, and then Poppy understands. "Confess!" the pastor shouts into her face. "I have nothing to confess. Allow the Lord God to show you mercy, child. I will not beg for forgiveness for something I have not done." A blue calm settles over Poppy, a resignation, a knowledge that this is what has to happen. "Do you think I see not the evil in your body?" "Any evil you see in my body is in your mind alone." "Confess!" he shouts again. "You are the wicked one," Poppy says, and spits in his face. Thurlow lifts a hand as if to strike her, but she does not flinch. His eyes are mean coal sparks. "This Satan worshipper before you," he says to the crowd, wiping his face, "this blackened soul is past redemption." Cries of assent echo from the crowd. The hangman steps forward again, places the noose around Poppy's neck and tightens it. She battles to breathe. The pastor stops him, as before. "Stop," he says, and struggles to loosen it. The crowd is silenced. Valence looks on, clearly hoping for a reprieve. Thurlow puts his hand on Poppy's shoulder. "A noose is not enough," he says. "We need to exorcise the very demons that inhabit her being." The executioner seems unsure what to do. Valence starts to argue, but a look from the pastor cuts him down. "Fire," says Thurlow. "Only fire will purge the wicked spirit of this woman." A cry goes up from the onlookers. The Robbins boy is already depositing twigs and other kindling beneath the tumble-down timber platform. Thurlow helps the hangman lash Poppy to the hanging post. "Exodus 22, verse 18. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," he says to her as he trusses her with a dirty cord. "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." The fire has been lit. Poppy can feel the sneaking warmth on her bruised soles, can smell the smoke. She finally catches sight of Jacqueline, who is screaming and flailing below. "Take her away," shouts Poppy, her voice hoarse. "I beg you, do not let her witness this." Her legs are starting to burn. She feels warm liquid, like tea, wet her shift. She looks down and sees that her bladder has emptied. Thurlow is rigid, one arm pointing up to salute his imagined heaven, the fingers of the other hand on his brow, eyes closed as he mutters his own incantations. A raven swoops down like an arrow and pecks at his eyelid, scratching his cheek. He waves it away and finds blood on his cheekbone. "Ma! Ma!" cries the girl, still a baby, still her precious baby. Poppy tries to reach out to her, but her arms are firmly bound in place. The fire is gathering momentum. Her dress catches the flame. "Please," cries Poppy to the crowd, "please take my Applejack away." She sees the baker's face, the hayman, the seamstress, all cold and unmoving as winter cliffs. She tries to ask again, but she cannot breathe for the smoke. No one heeds her, But then Glover breaks through the crowd, calling out and clapping at the people. In his wake, Lily Glover, babe in arms, pushes forward and grabs Jackie's arm and leads her away. Poppy can hardly hear or see. The heat is agony. Her skin blisters and pops. Her mind begins drifting to a higher place. She sees the Robbins boy pickpocketing the gawping onlookers. The pain becomes unendurable. More ravens come, perching on railings and barrels and abandoned market stalls. Soon the air is black with their squawking and feather litter. Glover is bellowing. "Help her! Help her!" he is shouting. "She burns too slowly." Suddenly, people are spurred into action as if woken from a trance, and they gather whatever fuel they can find and add it to the bonfire beneath her. There is light and darkness, and no air to breathe, and a huge explosion barbed with stars. Poppy sees peach blossoms and lavender and bees, and Applejack as a toddler, dimples, clouds, soil. Stars sparkle before her, and at last, the torment fades. At first into black, then grey, then white. The end.